good thing. He does so from afar from here on out. That's all right, though. Get used to it. It'll work. Okay, let's exhale. Michael Mestry, a financial services litigator in Charlotte, North Carolina, part of one of the big boys there, going to join us. Also a Florida State grad. In the second segment of the show, let's talk all things lawsuit. Let's get to figuring out the whole situation there. That's because we've got two things on our minds right now. The transfer portal, what Florida State does or does not do in the way of bringing in players from the transfer portal to try to add and bolster a roster that has a few holes. And then number two, obviously the lawsuit and what we can learn moving forward about where that's going, when it's going to happen, and when I say when it's going to happen, when developments are going to happen, those kinds of things. We are in studio. This is live. Chat away, everybody. It is good to see you. Tom, how are you, brother?
Hey, man. I'm in the office now. It's bare bones, but we're working on it. We'll get some more stuff in there. At least there's the Shea Stadium and the Florida State baseball, which is about a month away. License plates up. It was more about getting the internet connectivity going in the office, and we're going to eliminate the echo, all that kind of stuff. But I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm great, man. I'm in a good mood. I think the conversation with Michael's a good one. We had that conversation earlier today. That's the only aspect of the show that won't be live, but it was earlier today before coming in here. Both of us busy guys. We had to meet in the morning and get this thing knocked out. And I think you guys will like his insights, and we'll go from there. You know, I thought we could get knee deep in this. I could talk about Florida Statute 542.18, restraint of trade or commerce. Every contract, combination, or conspiracy in restraint of trade or commerce in this state is unlawful. You guys know that. You're aware of that already, I'm sure. Or we could just talk big picture here and kind of figure out what's what and go from there. And that's what we decided to do, which I think is gonna work out nice. I'm in a good mood here. I'm really, I think, excited about what happens next. By the way, I know you saw it. Everybody at Florida State or around Florida State or in any way connected to Florida State cares at all about Florida State has probably seen it by now. But it's great to watch that clip of Mike Norvell addressing the team in the locker room. After I could watch that over and over and over again. And I'll tell you why. That's an illustration of what should happen. Like that, your head coach should be that way. If you're fortunate and you hired the right guy, then he stands on rock solid principles and cares deeply about his players and is teaching the right things and is saying the right things when opportunities present themselves, both good, bad, and otherwise. And so that is further affirmation of something you already knew, but to hear it and to hear the emotion involved in it, once again, is a reminder of the passion, the enthusiasm, and the connection, the love of Mike Norvell and that staff and what they have for these players. I thought that was fantastic. I was happy to see it. A lot of times, I get it, with these cinematic recaps, you can kind of make things, I don't know, something they're not. Other times, they just capture a moment, and it's awesome that they captured a real moment, an authentic moment, and one that I think made us all very, very happy. And I don't say that because, listen, I will criticize when there's room to be critical. I will praise when there's room to praise, and everything in between. I just thought it was awesome to watch that. It made me smile last night. A little choked up watching that thing right there, buddy. They got me in the feels.
Well, you can understand why he's on the dais for the post-game press conference, and he too is choked up because he just got done delivering that message, and he was trying to gather together, and he had moments where he couldn't. It's just, as the game ends, I think we all did this. You're reflecting on the month. And December, it wasn't that long ago here on these airwaves that we would talk about how September is the worst month for Florida State across any of them on the calendar, until it wasn't. And then this past December, at least for me, in my lifetime of really watching and caring about the Noles and my entire adulthood post-undergrad, December was the absolute worst month. It just, whatever could go wrong did go wrong. And I think that was all finally coming to the surface for Mike, because he had to power through for signing day. He had to power through for the locker room, power through to prepare for the Orange Bowl, even though it was a farce. Just all of those things, and finally it hit him. And I'm glad it did, because the players need to see that. And it's important that they see that's their last image of Coach heading into the offseason.
And now there's a lot of work to be done, and that's the hard part, right? You have that moment. We said in the pregame show when we were predicting that Florida State was going to get blown out. I don't know that we knew 63-3 was on the horizon, but we knew it was going to be a lopsided game. And then when we got word in the pregame show that both Braden Fisk and Farmer were going to be out, and then we found out Bethune was going to be out, all of it, it just kept stockpiling more bad news, more bad news, more bad news. You thought, well, it's a distinct possibility. But the only bit of relief that we were given in that moment was that soon they'll kick this thing off, and before it's all said and done, it'll be over, and we can move on. Because I think everybody wanted to move on, frankly, on the day that Florida State was snubbed. Everybody was ready to move on because we didn't care about that game, and not in the wake of what they had just achieved and been robbed from accomplishing, right? And so then from there, you just thought, okay, well, fine, let's just get on with it. And you're going to take this drubbing, and we can talk about aspects of it and everything in between. But from here, let's begin to continue to build on the success that Florida State just had. And to be sure, 13-0, conference champions, winners of 19 straight prior to that exhibition loss, means that Florida State is moving in the right direction. But you're going to have to convince a few, especially younger kids who don't know any better, that Florida State is fine after that result, fine after that devastating, lopsided affair. We know that, but you have to convince them of that. And Mike has to assess lots of things right about now, and that includes how he delivers these messages and talks to these kids in the transfer portal. And now we know that DJ will be quarterbacking here in Tallahassee. That's a young man that really wants to be here, wanted to be here all along. When he came here upon that visit, he left here wanting the opportunity to quarterback here. Him at his best is a very good quarterback. So let's see if they get that out of him. It's a bridge for now. I'll be honest with you, Tom. I would have been okay had they not done it. I've got no problems with DJ. I think he's going to be a nice fit here. I think he's going to work hard. And again, DJ's physical tools on his best days, he's a plus player. But I would have been all right with, frankly, them going with Brock Glenn. I would have been okay with that. They could have gone one of two ways. And the reason I say that is you probably would have saved a lot of money, and you could have sunk that into linebacker, defensive line, offensive line, defensive end. And that's where I really think Florida State has to look at developing more depth and talent.
Yeah, I thought Brock was very impressive in the Orange Bowl. You look at the stat line and it won't look impressive, and you'll say, I'm crazy. But if you watch it and you see the decisions he made, the internal clock that showed up that wasn't there in the ACC championship game, some of the throws that the receivers did not come down with, but the placement of those throws, yeah, he made some mistakes. He missed a wide open guy as he was rolling out to his right and breaking the pocket, missed a read in the end zone as well. He wasn't perfect, but it was leaps and bounds better than the ACC championship game. And that was really good to see, because some guys sometimes are the reverse of gamers. Like, they do well in practice and they get in the games and you're just not so sure they can clear that hurdle. Brock is not afraid, man. Plus, his acceleration is better than I even saw in practice. Like, when he's breaking the pocket, his 0 to 60, it's not like he's going to be Jordan Travis or anything, don't get me wrong, but it's just his 0 to 60 is pretty quick. So if he sees an opening, he can take advantage of it. But all that said, what DJ does is stabilize things in a couple of ways. Number one, he stabilizes the position. Number two, I think he stabilized the program a little bit, because it was a run of good news for Florida State on New Year's Day, where DJ makes his decision, all those quarterbacks are picking their destinations, and then the Battle's End rolls out about 6 other players that are retained year over year, including a bunch of guys in the trenches. So it signaled a nice bit of stability that we have been yearning for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and I think it will pay dividends in recruiting the portal. I think that there's no doubt seeing stability at quarterback, as you're describing it, means you're more apt to get somebody who's a one-year guy to come here, because that guy is going to say, hey, look, maybe Brock's going to be nice, but I don't know how nice next year. It's still going to be learning on the job nice, whereas I know DJ is a very good player, and I know he can be very, very good. But I know we're going to have stability at the most important position on the field. Now, it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll go after another receiver. I wouldn't spend a lot on receiver. That's just me personally, I would probably not spend a lot on receiver. But I would look at maybe another receiver And I certainly, at this point, would look at offensive and defensive line. And I mean across the board, whether that's defensive end, whether that's, tackle, whatever you want to look at, I would do that. I think Florida State's got to find that. And we know, and I've talked about this at length, I'm a broken record with this. I don't love our linebacker coach. I don't think he recruits worth a damn. And I don't think we're seeing a lot of development at that position. So if he were to take it on down the road, I'd be fine with that.
Other than that, he's kicking ass.
So you know where I'm at on this. And I, it's one of those things where maybe years ago I'd be beating the table about the need to fire somebody, but I could just state it very clearly now and move on. And that is that I would fire Randy Shannon. I would have not hired Randy Shannon, and I would fire him hours ago. That's what I would do. But again, I don't like to talk about these things. I don't like to, just continue to clamor for people to be fired. So you won't hear me prattling on about Randy Shannon and firing Randy Shannon and the need to fire Randy Shannon. I won't do it. I'll let it play out. See what happens from here. See what happens from here. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. You just don't know.
I don't know. I don't think you've said enough on the matter. How do you feel? How do you feel about what Florida State should do? The health of the linebacker position.
I mean,
truth be told, though, this week there's a ton of dudes they're hosting, so this is a big week ahead. There's a little bit more unsettling if you're a Noel fan about closing on a couple of guys, maybe a prized recruit who is arriving either today or tomorrow from Purdue, a defensive end. Some other big names in the trenches as well. I mean, this period of about 4 days is huge to see what spring ball is going to look like. Then after that, once you get about halfway through this month, you know who you're going to have for spring ball, and then let the best man win until we go back into the portal again in the spring.
We talked about the sort of the portal discussion and which players that you're most excited about and what they'd be willing to do and not do in the portal. And it's a fluid situation. I know that's an overused phrase, but it's a fluid situation because everybody's roster is fair game these days. And so a lot of guys who maybe haven't entered the portal are still feeling out the portal waters without it letting anybody know. And I know we like to live in a world where we'd like to believe that people aren't tampering with other people's rosters. Well, they are. So, you might see a Nick Scorton kid, the Purdue edge rusher that you referenced a moment ago, 6'4", 280. All the production to go with the size is one of the best prospects available in the portal. And we have a need given that Jared Verse is departing. And so you would like to see that come to pass. But I would also, they've got probably 6 guys that I think they're looking at right now that we would all be excited about. Who knows if they get all of them, but then there are all of those kids we don't know that may be interested. And that's the stuff that I always caution people like, they may not want a wide receiver right now, but what if, just like Keon Coleman? I mean, just think about how that happened. They weren't exactly out there looking for it. And the next thing you knew, Keon Coleman not only put his name in the portal, but he was interested in Florida State. And we knew he was a difference maker. So you got to make a run at it when you get an opportunity like that.
Well, and yeah, that's where DJU could bring you maybe some opportunities that you didn't have before. And the more that it shakes out, I thought between option 1 of letting it ride with Tate, Brock, and Kromenhawk for the spring, and option 2 of non-Cam Ward, and then you've got some mixture of guys battling in the spring, I would have taken the in-house options. But then the moment Tate rides on Christmas Day after practicing for a couple of weeks and says that he's not going to play in the Orange Bowl and he's entering the transfer portal, this is a good get. It went from, all right, I could see it, to, no, you need to make this happen. Because what DJ does is he makes Florida State more attractive in the portal. But then also, if you think about it, it's just Brock and Kromenhawk in terms of other guys who have scholarships that are going to be here in the spring.
Yeah.
So to have somebody to shepherd those young guys along, even though he's going to be learning the offense himself, to have somebody to shepherd those guys along, teach them about, the trials and tribulations, because this is his 3rd program. He's seen it work and he's seen it fail, and he's seen several different offenses. This is nice in a couple of ways for Florida State to have this guy say yes and want to be here too. He's very enthusiastic about being a Nole. That matters too at a time where People were questioning the culture of the locker room openly.
Not smart people.
During the 60 minutes of the bowl game, just pointing, boy, Georgia, oh my goodness. Well, this is a nice answer to that because it stabilizes the program in several ways.
Yeah, so the season is completed, and we wanted to be sure we got on the record with somebody. Now, we were leading up to Christmas. Obviously, it was kind of a disjointed schedule, and then obviously you have the holiday. Everybody's schedule gets crazy. We have yet on the Jeff Cameron Show been able to sit down and on the air have a conversation with an attorney and somebody that can help shed some light on the lawsuit, because that's the other big subject right now that we're all going to be paying attention to is how does this get resolved? How quickly does it get resolved? What does it mean? What are the options for Florida State? Does this ever go through trial? Does this actually play out in a way in which it goes to trial or not? So I have the good fortune of knowing several attorneys that are very good at what they do, very intelligent, very insightful. And I wanted to get one of those guys on the air. And this happens to be, again, a financial services litigator in Charlotte. He's also a Florida State grad. Michael Mestre joins us next on the Jeff Cameron Show.
Now go call Seminole Glass. Now get on the road and get it done fast. They handle any kind of broken glass, and you know who they are.
You do know who we are. Your local family-owned glass company, proudly serving the Big Bend for over 16 years. When you have auto glass damage, don't be steered by your insurance company. Let us help you with that. Better call Seminole.
Hello, I'm Dana Brooks.
And I'm Jimmy Basic.
Traffic cameras are everywhere, providing valuable evidence if you've been in an accident.
But if you can't access that evidence, it could just be your word against theirs.
Basic Brooks is partnered with Roadproof to have access to all their traffic camera footage. If you've been hurt in an accident, give us a call and we'll find out if the proof you need is out there.
Let us find your video evidence so you can come back stronger. Call us now at 850-777-7777.
Power Mill Training Academy equips motivated athletes focused on baseball and softball with the specific tools to reach their true potential. Now, you'll read that if you go to their website, but I'm here to tell you that, look, whether it's your daughter wanting to play softball, your son wants to play baseball, or maybe they just want to have fun and get the most out of their abilities, and that's where Power Mill comes into play. They've got coaches and camps that teach for every level of play for your son or your daughter. To learn more, go to PowerMillSports.com.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mandlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
Orthopedic pain and injury deserves effective treatment options now, so you feel better fast. Whether you have joint pain that won't subside or an urgent orthopedic injury, we are the specialists to get you back on your feet. And there's only one thing better than fast care: expert care. We believe you deserve both. TOC, only experts. Learn more at teamtoc.com.
I'm Greg Tisch, and I want to share how it all began at Tallahassee Community College. During a quiet moment on a fishing trip in 1963, FSU President Gordon Blackwell looked to Lewis Hill, who was a member of the Leon County Board of Public Instruction, and said, "Lou, why don't you get a junior college?" When Lou told Gordon he felt the college would compete with FSU, Gordon responded, "Nah, you ought to have one." We don't know if they caught any fish that day, but they did catch a big idea.
TCC thanks our community for 58 years of support. We look forward to moving into the future together.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now, back to Jeff on Real Talk 93.3.
Welcome in, Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Been wanting to do this for a while. We had to get out to the other side of the holidays in order to do it. If you're watching on Warchant TV right now, you'll see a gentleman. His name is Michael Mestry, financial services litigator in the Charlotte area. He's a Knoll, ladies and gentlemen, and he joins us on the Jeff Cameron Show now. A lot of big credentials. He's with one of the big boys, but we won't get into the weeds with all of that. I did want to have an attorney on the show, and I wanted it to be somebody, Michael, like yourself, that I could talk to as this thing goes along. We're entering into the off season now. For every Florida State fan, that means paying attention to the transfer portal, but also FSU's blistering lawsuit against the ACC. Some have said, and I quote, Michael, it's the kind of lawsuit that, quote, could shake college sports and potentially set off another unsettling wave of conference realignment if FSU succeeds in court and withdraws from the ACC. And while that's juicy and fun to talk about, I want to get your initial impression of the complaint. And did anything stand out to you when you first read it?
Yeah, Jeff, thanks. And thanks for having me on the show. Kind of my initial thoughts was that, like a lot of attorneys that I've talked to, this suit has some teeth, more than kind of what was anticipated, throughout this time. They bring forth a declaratory judgment action, which is basically, asking the court to, answer for the parties what is the enforceability of this contract and the grant of rights, as well as the multimedia agreement with ESPN. And so it's interesting to see, how the attorneys for FSU kind of went at it. And it will be interesting to see how this plays out in the future.
So, okay, look, the complaint was filed in state court in Florida. It seeks to nullify more than $500 million in penalties, and that's what FSU would face if they left the league now. It, as you're noting, it also asked the court to deem that Florida issued its formal notice of withdrawal, by the way. A lot of people didn't know this, from the ACC effective August 14th, 2023 is what it's saying, which is a kind of a big deal, right? It doesn't at any point say where FSU might be going afterwards, but it does accuse the ACC of incompetence and mismanagement. And it's asking the court to declare that its agreements with the league have been breached on several counts. When you read through it, was that something that surprised you? Was it something that you thought an interesting approach? I guess from the angle that FSU took, what are your thoughts regarding those accusations?
Yeah, and I want to lay the groundwork that a lot of the legal writing in complaints can be a lot of grandstanding. So a lot of these allegations you take with a grain of salt, but there are some allegations within here that hold some weight if there's truth to it, such that maybe not all of the member institutions signed the grant of rights or agreed to the multimedia agreement with ESPN. It's also interesting that they specifically note and compare the exit fees and the penalties involved to those that ESPN has with the SEC, and how the penalty clause is just so exorbitant and so large compared to what is going to be potentially the damage to the ACC. Now, one of the things that FSU specifically puts in their allegations is that, back in 2012, I believe, they did an economic analysis of what it would cost the ACC for a member institution to leave. And then when they talk about the exit fee as of the 2016 grant of rights and the multimedia agreement with ESPN, there's no discussion, and specifically specifically they talk about, not having any sort of economic analysis, and they just choose such a ridiculous number in order to get the parties out, which leads credence to their allegations that, this penalty is an unenforceable penalty. It's something that has no relationship to, what the parties are going to suffer in damages. So, it's interesting. And like I said, we'll see kind of as this plays out more and more about kind of what their strategy is. But it is interesting to see some of the assertions that they're making.
So, Michael, I again, we're just kind of taking a big cursory glance at this thing and establishing our relationship so that we can continue to talk about this moving forward. When I look at something like this, and I'm just speaking for Joe Public here, and I read that Florida State had been reviewing, Florida State's legal counsel, as well as an outside law firm, had been reviewing the grant of rights for over a year, and they began working on legal arguments dating back to last summer. So in my head, and I said this to you when we were off the air, I was like, were they looking at like, what kind of Faustian bargain is this? Where where do they start? Where do they look at something like that and go, look, here are the holes. Here are the ways we can attack this, because we've been told repeatedly that, quote unquote, the grant of rights deal is ironclad. So this is a two-part question to you. A, how did they come at it in your mind? Because you've been involved in big cases like this. And the other thing I would say is, if the grant of rights was ironclad, did it not seem excessive and even punitive and in bad faith that the ACC assumed Florida State was going to file this lawsuit and beat him to the punch in order to try to stop Florida State from challenging the grant of rights? And why would you be worried about that if it was ironclad?
Yeah, so I could talk about the ACC's actions kind of first. They filed their suit the day before the Board of Trustees meeting at 4:55, right at the end of the business day. They, in their complaint against Florida State, which they assert a declaratory judgment action as well regarding the grant of rights. And in their complaint, they include, somewhere between, I think, like 17 and 20 paragraphs in their, jurisdiction and venue section of the complaint. Meanwhile, in Florida State's suit, it was a total of 4 paragraphs. Typically, what you see in declaratory judgment actions or actions as a whole is that the jurisdiction and venue portion of a complaint is typically very small. And, because there's not really an issue as to where the suit is being brought. Now, it's clear that the ACC, when they brought their suit the day before, made venue and jurisdiction a huge issue in their complaint. It was very clear that, they wanted to preempt this suit by FSU in order to try and get home field advantage. That is, very clear by the wording of the complaint. It's very important. And so it's very clear that, I'm not going to speak to whether there's any sort of bad faith, but it does seem that the ACC made some sort of concerted action to try and get the most favorable jurisdiction and venue to them.
So,
as to,
sorry,
yeah.
I want, while we're on that subject of venue and the effort to have home field advantage, as you put it, well, both sides want that. You and I have talked about this before. Does this then in turn mean that this goes to a federal court?
So that's a little bit of a nuanced issue. Now, we have a suit filed in Florida by FSU and a suit filed in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, by the ACC concerning the same issue. Now, there are issues with claim preclusion and issue preclusion, which are kind of the civil version of double jeopardy. And so there's going to be either they're going to work together and maybe discuss removing the matter to federal court based on diversity, or the federal court has more discretionary jurisdiction when there's a declaratory judgment action. So there's no guarantee a federal court is going to take up the issue, but the parties could work together, try and remove and consolidate the issue there. Now, it's definitely going to be a issue between both parties. They're going to try and file motions to move the matter to their jurisdiction. They're going to try and say that it's the improper venue or that the parties are not subject to that jurisdiction. We saw in the Maryland suit back in 2013 that Maryland brought a motion that the court in North Carolina had no jurisdiction over them. They sought it on pretty different grounds than what I suspect Florida State will, but we were definitely going to see probably in the next 30 to 60 days either some sort of motion regarding, trying to get it in the right court or what they believe is the more favorable jurisdiction to them, or some sort of concerted action together to try and remove the matter and maybe consolidate the issue. That'll be a kind of a strategy between each party, what they think is going to be most likely to be successful. But both of these guys have very smart attorneys. I work with Womble and Greenberg, and they're both really good at their job. So I suspect that we're going to find out pretty soon what's going to happen.
I interrupted you rudely and asked you to answer a question while you were answering another question that I had. So let's go back to that other one that I asked you, the second part of that other one, which is how do you begin to tackle what I joked about it, calling it a Faustian bargain. I'm wondering like what they looked at as an attorney yourself when you do this, when you look at something that is broad and big as this, how do you go about putting together, a year's worth of studying this legal document and attacking and finding holes in it?
Yeah, so it is very interesting that this kind of agreement is kept lock and key away in
why?
North
Why,
Carolina. It's very strange. I deal with a lot of confidential agreements where both parties have access to the agreement, and there's no problem with providing access to the agreement to each party. And should you release that information, you're subject to penalties under the confidentiality agreement. There's no reason to potentially keep the agreement in lock and key. It was obviously some part of the agreement between the ACC and ESPN to do that, to hide it away. The purpose for which, it's hard to say at this point, but it's very strange. Now, for them to go up and see this agreement this often, it's costly. It's very expensive to do that. So for them to do that and spend the time to evaluate every single line and every single part of this contract, they were going through it step by step to just kind of isolate, okay, here's where the issues are. You learn, as an attorney that your job is to issue spot. You receive something and you look through it and you say, okay, where are the issues in this contract or this complaint or whatever it may be? And so they spent time up there looking at it, looking through all the provisions of it, and tried to spot where some of the issues might be. They've got to do their due diligence, and obviously they only have a limited amount of time there, considering it's in lock and key, under lock and key. So it obviously going to take a lot longer, such the year that it took. But it's just kind of a regular process in reviewing and understanding all the provisions and all the possibilities.
So you're issue checking, spot issue checking. You're looking for anything that you can attack here. You've got a situation that is very unique. As you point out, it's very costly. You lawyers aren't cheap by the hour, good sir. And so these folks are making billable hours is undefeated, right? So, they're more than happy to go on up there and analyze this. But it is absurd to the layman to think about an agreement to the extent of this one, with hundreds of millions of dollars closing in on $1 billion worth of agreements, to be under lock and key, that nobody can go and look at this. What the hell kind of agreement is that? If you simplify it, like if you and I decide we're going to buy a plot of land together or a driveway or something small, like we're all going to be able to look at the contract. There's money exchanging hands here. What are we doing? That's crazy to me.
And as an attorney and not a layman, it's crazy to me as well. It's very strange. I deal with a lot of the large financial institutions in America, and these companies make millions and billions of dollars, and they don't have these confidential agreements, with parties under lock and key. There are some confidential agreements that, are hidden away from people who aren't party to the agreement. But to withhold parties to this agreement that they are subject to and keep it away from their site is very strange. It's not something I would typically see.
All right, so one more here, maybe a couple more, just out of curiosity. So I looked at, we won't get into restraint of trade with Florida antitrust law. Like you said, you're an attorney in Charlotte, and even though you went to school here and later Stetson, you're not going to get real comfortable in getting into the depths of antitrust law in Florida right now. But what about the contractual price of exiting the ACC, i.e., the $429 million in forfeited revenue plus $130 million withdrawal payment, that could be deemed unenforceable. A lot of people have heard that, right? That penalty, you referenced it earlier in this conversation. I want to go back over that because I find that fascinating. In my mind, what I heard you say, and I'm really boiling it down to the simplest of terms here, that seems overly penal. It seems to be absurdist on its face, that cost. Is that, in essence, what Florida State is saying? Hey, this is a crazy amount of money. This is way too punitive.
Yes, that's exactly what they're saying. The relationship to between the fees and what it would cost to exit is just absolutely out of relation completely. The analogy that I give is if I enter into agreement to purchase, let's say, a Toyota Corolla for $10,000, and you say, all right, you have to pick it up by January 1st, 2024. But if you don't, you owe me $1 billion. That is nowhere near in relationship to the damages that's suffered by the person holding the car for another day or however long they have to hold the car for. That would be an example of something they're trying to say is an unenforceable penalty. So the courts kind of go back and forth on this because, when you have experienced parties, educated parties, parties who are involved in, high level agreements like this all the time, you know what you're getting yourself into at the time. So, in the example, I am not someone that's buying tens of thousands of cars a day. So I don't know what it's going to cost to hold a car. And so it's different in those situations versus these high level actors. And so the courts sometimes will allow penalties that do go beyond, what the damage to the parties would be in certain circumstances. In this case, FSU is obviously arguing that regardless, this is just a ridiculous and completely, penal penalty that's just so ridiculous in size that it's unrelated to any damages that anyone would suffer, regardless of whether we knew at the time of the agreement or not.
Okay, this is overly simplistic. It is my final question for now. I was jotting down notes when we first got to know each other and thinking about questions I'd have for you. And I kept coming back to this because I think every Florida State fan wants to just know this. They want a timeline, and they also want to know, is this ever going to go to trial? Or was this meant mainly to bring people to a bargaining table, to create a conversation by which a number is formulated? Now, that's an opinion of yours. It's an opinion of mine. It's a speculative thing. I get it. I'm not asking you to say, hey, I know based on this, this, and this is what's going to happen. We don't know that. But big picture, am I right to think that that's kind of why this happened? Or do you think it will go through trial?
Yeah, and to all of Seminole Nation, the wheels of justice turn very slowly. While we may see kind of where the motion practice is and the answers have complained and the removal process with this venue may happen within the next 30 to 60 days, the actual resolution of either suit is going to take a very, very long time. For me, the majority of suits that get brought end in some sort of settlement agreement. Suits allow parties to go to mediation, get at the table, and discuss negotiating an agreement that's fruitful to both parties. And in this case, it's very likely, I believe it's very likely that that's going to be the case. There's going to be some sort of agreement. And the main purpose of that is it is expensive to bring a lawsuit. It's expensive to go through discovery. It's expensive to bring motions. It is expensive. And so that expense alone will most likely bring people to the negotiating table. Now, we will see when how this plays out, how discovery plays out, where this is likely to go. But I do think that this is something where both parties are going to talk and sit at a table and say, okay, how can we work this out? Whether it be letting FSU leave the ACC or by working to try and get some sort of new agreements or unequal revenue distribution, something that's going to be fruitful that will allow the parties to save face and drop both suits.
I think the fear, right, would be that, well, the ACC's got more money as a league than Florida State does. They could wait this out and say, well, you can go broke. And you'd be worried about it, right?
And that's definitely something that both parties are going to consider at the negotiating table. Obviously, having more money gives you a little bit more leverage in negotiating, but we're talking millions of dollars, and they don't want to give away millions of dollars for no reason. That's just something that we don't see lots of parties do. So if there's a way to save money and come to some agreement that both parties are okay with, they'll likely do that. Now, discovery changes that a lot. What they find out throughout the process of this lawsuit changes that a lot. It changes the leverage on both sides of the parties. But we'll see that as it plays on.
Discovery is always so juicy in the movies. It's like you find out, oh, Jerry sent a late night email after one too many scotches. And then look at this, and we're reading about it now, and the ACC's been exposed, or vice versa, right? Everybody, that's what happens in the movies.
Yeah, you don't typically see that kind of smoking gun in real life, like you would see in Suits or LA Law or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it does give you some insight into what's going on. And part of the biggest process in discovery is depositions. You can request depositions of another party, which tends to give you a little bit, to me, in my experience, some better information as to what the party's insights were and what they were actually doing, regardless of what is on paper and in emails and what you find. So that process will bring us some better information.
That's cool. You don't see too many conference commissioners being deposed, or athletic directors, or presidents of schools. Like it's fascinating, the idea of it. I don't think they like to be deposed either. So this will be
No, it's grueling. It is not fun. It's not fun for anyone involved. Potentially you have multi-day depositions where it's you, your lawyer, and another lawyer in a small conference room, and it lasts days. And it's just 8 hours a day of being asked question after question after question.
And you're under oath, right?
And you're under oath. You're subject to perjury by what you say, and so it's just it's not exciting. Now, they will obviously take steps so that the Florida State presidents or the commissioner of the ACC are not going to be deposed first. They can get a lot of that information by deposing other people. It will typically be the last step where they depose someone like that, but we will see some good information if it gets to that step.
Michael, I'm going to be talking to you along the way as we get information and new information comes out. I'll need your expertise. I really appreciate you taking the time today with us on the Jeff Cameron Show and Warchant TV. And listen, brother, be on the ready. I'll have you in again soon. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Take care. That's Michael Mestry, financial service litigator there in Charlotte. He's part of one of the big firms, and we really appreciate him joining us right now on the show. Wanted to establish that relationship so that moving forward, as we get information, as things do happen in the case, we can have him on again and start picking his mind as to where this is headed.
If fatal crash that took place on Saturday in Gadsden County resulted in the passing of one Tallahassee police officer. Family members of Officer Demario Bryant confirmed on Tuesday he was the motorcyclist killed in the Saturday crash. In a crash report, troopers detailed that a 43-year-old Tallahassee man was killed while riding his motorcycle Saturday afternoon on US 90 in Quincy. He was pronounced deceased at the scene. Bryant was off duty at the time of the crash. FHP said the officer was wearing a helmet. A 33-year-old woman and her 13-year-old passenger were also injured. Shirley Knight, a second-grade teacher at Greensboro Elementary School in Gadsden County, decided to use her birthday to give back to her students. In place of traditional books or party, the teacher asked for children's books to fill out her classroom library. Family and friends have been sending books in, but if you would like to get in on the book giving, you can drop off age-appropriate books at Greensboro Elementary School. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 Local News Update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Rain showers likely this afternoon. Otherwise, cloudy skies expected. High temperatures reach up to 54. Winds out of the east, 5 to 10 miles per hour. Heavy rain likely tonight. Lows dip down to about 38. Cloudy skies expected. High temperatures reach up to 58 tomorrow. Ample sunshine expected. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 54.
Gee, honey, I'm not gonna lie. Our front yard is looking sad. Don't you think it's time for some TLJ?
I'm pretty sure you mean TLC, and I don't have time for all that work.
No, I'm talking about some TLJ, like in the radio commercials. Give your yard some TLJ. The Lawn Johns.
For all your lawn care and landscaping needs, give your yard the TLC it deserves with some TLJ. Call the Lawn Johns today for a free quote at 322-2567 or visit thelawnjohns.com.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff?
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of, that nobody would know, and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Welcome back to the Jeff Cameron Show, sponsored by Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans.
To all of us that this somehow gets settled sooner rather than later. I will say this for the uninitiated. Florida State will be playing football in the ACC in 2024. That schedule is cemented. There is no getting out of that. That's going to happen. We'll all be over in Ireland together, I suppose, watching Florida State, Georgia Tech, which, by the way, did you know? Florida State minus 4.5, the current line against Georgia Tech in Ireland. So there you go. You laying that 4.5?
If I am, it's because of Florida State's reputation of whooping ass in the portal and the expectation that they will do so again. But as it stands right now, if you said, you have no other facts to go on and Florida State doesn't have that reputation, then no, I'd wait and see. But I think they're going to do well in the portal again. So, yeah, all right, sure, 4.5. Let's do it.
I was very impressed by Georgia Tech's season and the way that it ended and the way they got it turned around. I think that game, if you had asked me halfway through the season, and said, Jeff, project ahead to Florida State and Ireland, what do you got? I think I would have said Florida State by, 24. Now, seems like a right number. There's a lot that's going to happen to both programs over the course of the next several months. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, you'd like to think on the surface that Florida State is going to clean up yet again in the portal and do very well, and in doing so, position themselves to try to defend an ACC championship. That schedule is fun. Florida State does not really have room not to fill those holes. They've got a tough schedule next year, and a fun one, I think, just in terms of covering and going to games and all of that. Florida State's got a fun and tough schedule. And, I've said I don't think this is a championship team going into next year, but admittedly, we all would kind of want to see what we figure out here as far as defensive end. We already figured out the quarterback position. What are they at running back and receiver? What are they at linebacker and defensive tackle? Much easier to make a guess at that 4.5 once you know the answers to that question. And right now we don't know.
Yeah, if they get the kid from Purdue and you combine that with the retention of Patrick Payton, which happened on New Year's Day, and you have Marvin Jones Jr. as a rotation piece to go with some of the younger guys that you have. Yeah, man, like defensive end, I don't know that you're as good as you were last year, but I think you might be. And then you have to shuffle and move your resources towards interior defensive line and linebacker and see what you can get. But if you do get the kid from Purdue, man, you got yourself a badass rotation at end once again.
You do, and they've seemed to have always found a way. To go get that guy. I think if you're a defensive end prospect, you're looking at Florida State as the place to go. We went back and documented really where they cemented their reputation was the fact that they were able to get the Jermaine Johnsons of the world and then later Jared Verse and turn those guys into beasts. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Stay with Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
There's nothing like relaxing in a hot tub after a long day. But if you don't have one, you're truly missing out. Hot tubs and spas have tremendous health benefits, besides just helping you relax. Like improving your sleep, they help with pain relief. They help to better your cardiovascular health, and so much more. And this season is the perfect season to finally buy what you've been wishing for. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patio, and Spas has the hot tubs you need for the price you want. Come shop our huge 12,000 square foot showroom and save today. There's over 50 hot tubs in stock right now, so you won't have to wait weeks on end for that delivery to finally come to town. If you're ready to relax, we're here to show you how. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patios, and Spas. Come visit our huge showroom at 2473 Greer Road with over 50 hot tubs to choose from. You'll be glad you did.
With tens of thousands of satisfied patients across America, it's no surprise QC Kinetics gets 5-star reviews.
I'm feeling on top of the world because of QC Kinetics.
I'm able to do the things that I wasn't able to do for a long time.
I can recommend them highly. I would recommend QC to anybody. QC Kinetics has changed my life.
I couldn't believe it. I honestly was skeptical, but the pain went from a 10 to a 0.
Real people with real lasting relief from joint pain.
QC Kinetics Regenerative Medicine is regenerating me.
It was super successful, and I recommend everyone seek out QC Kinetics as an alternative to surgery.
This non-surgical approach is definitely the future.
I tell as many people as possible. I am an ambassador. I love QC Kinetics.
QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. No drugs, no surgery. Call QC Kinetics now for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 850-391-4280. That's 850-391-4280. 850-391-4280.
Widden Glass has been taking care of business since 1945. When you call Widden Glass, you're dealing with experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best. Like Widden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures that provide style and luxury at an affordable price. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Widden Glass. We'll help you design it and install it. Widden Glass, the first name in glass replacement. Call 222-5781.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3. WVFT, Greta, Tallahassee.
The latest betting odds and live movements from Vegas. This is your action update. Now here are your latest lines from our guys in the desert.
The Jaguars, Buccaneers, and Dolphins are all playing for some version of winning their division or clinching a playoff spot. For the Jaguars, they match up against the Titans coming up on Sunday. A little bit of line movement here. Jacksonville had opened up as a 3-point favorite, but that point spread has now moved to 5.5. The Buccaneers win the division with a win on the road against the Carolina Panthers. Tampa Bay, they had opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. That point spread has actually come back a little bit as the Buccaneers are now favored by 5. And the Dolphins have a big game against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo had opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. A small move here. They are now favored by 3.
For the latest odds all the time, visit vsin.com. I'm Matt Pauley. This has been your action update on Tallahassee's Real Talk station, Real Talk 93.3.
If you're looking for a new couch, you could cut down on expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive. Because you know you've had this couch for too long. Sure, you've had good times together, but a ripped-up cushion is not a fond memory. It's a sign. Notice how other people have couches with 2 armrests? Now that's living, right? No, it's just normal. So bundle your renters and car insurance with Progressive and put the savings toward a new couch. Please, it's time. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company coverage provided in service by affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states.
Hey, Doc, nice office. Quick question. If you had to choose, would you give yourself a root canal or run payroll?
Run payroll, no question.
Seriously? Have you run payroll before?
Paying my team with Gusto couldn't be easier. Gusto gives me unlimited payroll runs, next-day direct deposits, and automatically files my taxes. Saves me time.
Wow, that's nice.
Over here, Doc. I want payroll too.
Choose payroll without the pain. Visit gusto.com/radio to sign up for free.
Your friendly neighborhood bar and grill just got a whole lot closer to home. You can now order delicious Smitty's Tap House and Grill for delivery directly to your doorstep. Just visit Smitty'sTapHouse.com, click the Order Online button, and choose pickup or delivery. Enjoy Smitty's famous handmade pretzel with beer cheese, juicy pub burger, or even the amazing schnitzel sandwich, delivered fresh right to your doorstep. Support local and order online today for takeout or delivery at Smitty'sTapHouse.com, where everybody knows his name.
Hey folks, it's me, Mac and More, spokesperson for Tallahassee's favorite Apple and Mac product store, Mac and More. We all know what Mac is all about. It's your MacBooks, iMacs, Apple Watch, iPhones, iPads, we've all got them. But what's really cool is the and more. And there's a lot more at Mac and More. They can help set up your new gear, migrate and back up your data, teach you new tricks and how to use everything better. And if something costs too much to fix, they'll tell you the truth. There's a lot more at Mac and More. See for yourself at macandmoresystems.com. Or you can take it from me, Mr. Mac and More.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Fasig.
And I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks Law Offices.
When you're in an accident, traffic cameras can be the best source of evidence to prove who's at fault.
That's why Fasig Brooks has partnered with RoadProof to have access to all their traffic camera footage.
With RoadProof, we can search our network of traffic cameras to find the evidence that could help you win your case.
Call us today to see if we can help find the proof to help you come back stronger.
Call us now at 850-777-7777.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen close.
respond now more to portal stuff. There was a question in regarding Malcolm Ray, and it gives me an opportunity, Tom, to segue into my thoughts on, where we're at in college football, where we're at with the transfer portal, and all these things that are seemingly omnipresent on college football fans' minds. But I don't, I've never had a problem with the idea of kids being able to transfer. I do think unlimited transfers is a mistake and a problem for coaches, and the kind of thing that a coach would maybe then at some point say, I'll take this to the league if I can. I'm going to the NFL, where if I sign a free agent, I know where he's going to be, and I don't have to worry about re-recruiting him at the end of every practice that doesn't go well. That kind of stuff is maddening. But where I see fans' reaction to the extreme is when they get frustrated with certain kids, and these kids that enter their name in the portal, and it's the modern-day Reedy Ree, buddy. This is what we're dealing with, Tom. It's a whole nother genre of Reedy Ree, only via the portal. And I had this conversation before any of the names went into the portal for people and said, there's a ton of misinformation out there, and these kids are falling for it. While college football is in a state of massive transition, not all of it good. In fact, a lot of it bad. Sport feels a little broken right now. But it is in transition, and while it is, you'll see a lot of strange results, a lot of strange happenings that frustrate you to no end. Sometimes it works in your behalf or on your behalf, and other times it does not. But what I've learned is that I can easily, forgive certain kids who get misinformation, have poor representation, people in their ear misleading them in because that kind of thing could be damaging. Do we lose it? Are we off the air? We're good? We're back on the air? Everybody all right?
We were for a second there. As you were getting into the high and mighty points you were making about what it is like to be in Reedy Ree season, essentially, while you're actually on a roster, which is the worst of high school recruiting has found its way onto a roster in college, which is kind of nuts because it should be over once you make that decision.
Yeah, and really quick in a nutshell, what I was saying is there's a difference. What I'm learning is that kids get misinformation, they get misled, poor representation, all of those things. And then all of a sudden a kid decides to enter his name in the transfer portal because he thinks there are riches out there that aren't, right? And that's a very different thing. That's an innocent thing. It's an unfortunate thing. It's the byproduct of this transition that we're watching. It's very frustrating for all involved, including coaches and players and fans and parents and all that. But that's different than when you do something like you get mad at a coach or you get mad at your playing situation, you put your name in the portal, and then you badmouth the program and speak untruths about the program. If you do something like that, you're not coming back. If I'm a coach, you're not coming back. That's it. You're not going to subvert our culture. You're not going to be able to do that. If you're a kid that was misled, confused, a little misguided, and you do it, I got no hard feelings against you, but it is impossible to expect fans of a program to sit back and watch and hear about this player, that player, or this player, put their name in a portal, and then not feel a little, I guess, unwanted or frustrated, right? And then to kind of not know what's what, who fits in which category. Is this kid a bad kid? Is he screwing us over? Is this kid a good kid who's got an opportunity? Is this kid just absolutely got poor representation? It is hard to know which category these kids fit into.
Well, and the hardest part to deal with is that there isn't any transparency on the level. And I don't know if our friends at the Battle's End would like this, but there's no transparency on the level of the collective. You don't know what a kid is earning. It's not public record, and what that does is it allows perhaps for a competitive advantage on the collective level at a specific institution. But what it does is it also allows for these group text conversations with friends of friends telling you as the third string defensive tackle or the third safety at Florida State that you're not making enough capital. Well, if you got to see what the market actually was as you were at Florida State, I bet you more players than not that are in Tallahassee would say, I've got it pretty good here. Wow, this is a pretty good situation, instead of having to find out about it the hard way. That's where the lack of transparency in the system as we have it right now actually, I think, is hurting a program like Florida State, because I don't know how many of the kids that have entered the portal in the last 2 years would have done so if they knew what the real market was out there at other institutions.
That's 100% correct. And without getting specific, as in naming a player, okay, I will say this. I do have a really good understanding of what is out there and what kids are being offered and what level of player is capable of receiving this much or that much. And I also have a very good understanding of what we're doing and what the Battle's End is doing. And you are spot on when you say the vast majority, not all, but nearly all, of the kids who think that the grass is greener financially on the other side, that there are untold millions to be made that they are being kept from, are wildly ill-informed and lament the decision not long after burning bridges and learning that it was all a mirage, that money is not there, that promise was not going to be kept. There are countless examples of kids, even kids currently in the portal, who found out the hard way that their friend or a family member or even their own mom or dad or somebody unscrupulous out there has misled them into believing something that is 100% inaccurate. And if you do the damage that some of these kids have done, and this is not just at Florida State, you always heard growing up, well, don't burn bridges. You never know. If somebody didn't lie or cheat or steal from you, but you had a falling out for whatever reason within the realm of what is, considered to be a disagreement within reason. It's not like a fight or somebody cheated on somebody or something like that. Then don't burn bridges, because you never really know. And the kids are finding that out the hard way. They're finding out that, okay, I'm mad because I think this thing is true and I've been told that it's true, and now I'm going to go pursue this. And then, damn it, it's not true. And I've already said bad things about this coach or this player or this program, and I'm screwed. And I hate that part of it. That's the part where, because things aren't as regulated and aren't as clear-cut as we'd like them to be right now, and the structure's not in place the way that it needs to be for kids to make informed decisions, then you do have this happen a lot. And it's just maddening to sit back and watch from afar, because it affects you on a day-to-day basis. I can't imagine being a coach. I just having to deal with that every day. You don't know what your roster is going to look like today, tomorrow, or next week, let alone when you kick off in Ireland.
Sure. Well, and that's the problem with the lack of market regulation, if you will. I'm all for, the pendulum's gone too far the other way, but I was all for players having the same rights that coaches had, which is I could walk at any moment if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. Now, there might be a buyout that I have to pay, but I'm going to make sure the next institution just pays that. So that's not really a buyout. That's a concern for me. It's not coming out of my pocket.
Right.
It's just the next place is going to pay it for me. So I can walk whenever I want. I can leave a team high and dry, maybe before an important game, maybe before an important season, maybe just a week or two after I told a kid in his living room that I'm going to be there for the next 4 or 5 years, and I'm going to be the one guiding him along. So I appreciate that, collegiate sports has allowed for the players to have the same rights to walk as the coaches, but we've gone too far the other way now. And I don't know the proper way out of the situation we're in. You could say, let's make it all transparent, so you can see all the contract figures for kids as it pertains to NIL. But I think that the problem at that point is now you're talking about an arms race where you got teams bidding against themselves, and you're setting up the bubble to burst even quicker, where at some point there isn't a sustainable factor of maybe $3-4 million extra on the budget if you're at Ohio State versus Alabama versus Notre Dame versus USC. I think that's what the collective side is probably afraid of. It's just there's no easy answer, and it's like anything else we talk about, whether it's conferences, TV payouts, the playoff, the structure of the calendar, like say December. There's no central figure leading the way in the sport, and the sport is bleeding from 5 different flesh wounds and maybe a mortal wound or 2.
Well, and that is the fear, because we all love the game. Yeah. And we love covering and following this game and rooting for our team and watching these games. And then you watch what's transpiring and you find it very difficult to get through. You just almost want to turn it off and say, wake me up when we're about to kick off and tell me who's on the team. But, that's not our job. And certainly it's not something that I can do. And it's not something I want to do. I just would like to see some parameters. I'd like to see something that gets us to that place where you have a better understanding of what's allowable, what's fair, what's not, and where this is headed. And it seems like, and this is a negative way to look at it, but it feels like, and it seems like college football is going to be broken for a couple of years, because I don't think the cavalry's coming. Jeff Cameron, 93.3 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV.
Excellence defines us, so we'll never let orthopedic pain and injury define you. TOC is a physician-led team of fellowship-trained specialists providing the highest level of orthopedic care in the region. With 12 centers of excellence and TOC Now urgent care clinics, our patients access affordable, expert care fast. TOC, only experts. Schedule an appointment at teamtoc.com.
Hey, no fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
Let's take a minute to imagine all the things you can accomplish with help from Southeast Portable Buildings. Are you a hoarder? Hoard some more. Get a storage shed. Mother-in-law moving in with you? Put her in a shed out back. I'm kidding. Still working on that engine that you're going to finish from last summer? Move it out to a new workspace with Southeast Portable Buildings. From she sheds and man caves to repair shops and trophy rooms, the possibilities are only limited to your imagination. Visit Southeast Portable Buildings today.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mndlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
A cup of Joe, Java, brew, go-go beans, brain water, liquid lightning, wakey juice, whatever you call your cup of coffee, you're missing out if it's not Grassroots Coffee. At grassrootscoffee.com, you'll find an easy way to order the best roasted coffee beans available. It's very simple. Choose the blend you want and how you want it ground, and the bag you receive will have the date your beans were roasted and packaged on it, all written by hand and signed by the roast master himself. You'll know that's as fresh as it gets. You can get Grassroots outside of your house also at some of your favorite restaurants in town. Next time you're out to eat, try asking for Grassroots Coffee by name, because there's a good chance they will have it for you. And if you own a business, Grassroots Coffee has options to stock your break rooms with all the productivity powder your team needs. Plus, like some other options that you'll find at work, Grassroots Coffee actually is a part of our community. Hit to grassrootscoffee.com today and get yourself a treat. Some locally owned, locally roasted, and locally loved Grassroots Coffee.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State.
Ira Schafel, in fact, on Warchant that, quote, it was a strong possibility that I could stay. Very strong, quote unquote. Obviously, he played a lot, and he's, a guy that is a good depth piece. He's not a dominant player. He went on to say that, a bunch of nice things about the program, but we'll see. We'll see if he ends up playing. And, of course, there's the idea that Briggs comes back for a 7th year of college football, which is just crazy. I wish him nothing but the best. Florida State could use him, I think, without question, to have that depth. He got better as the year went on, as he got healthier. I do think, and Tom, you and I had this conversation in Bellying Up, the podcast that we do that's a little different from the show, and that a lot of times we talk about anything, not always about football. This last one that you can find on the feed there, on the podcast feed, is mostly about football. And one of the things that I brought up, and I'll bring up here for the audience that didn't catch it, is that I think there were some lessons to be learned in that wildly inappropriate exhibition game that ended disastrously in a way that we kind of predicted. But I do believe that Florida State, so this is the way that I couch this, and I think it's important to note this because people lose track when you fast track success the way that Mike has been able to do. But Florida State is still climbing, is still upwardly mobile, it still has room to grow. It's a very unique year, one that could have had them in that Final Four, and they might have been able to win the whole thing if they were healthy and had their starters. And we think certainly they earned the right to be there. But let's move away from that well-worn discussion and frustration and talk about, was there anything to learn in an exhibition game in which a lot of guys did not play and in which your players that did were overmatched? And I think the answer is yes. It is another reminder that Florida State does not have championship caliber depth yet. Now, the result of that game is a mixture of a lot of things. It's not all bigger, stronger, faster. But there are segment groups that are quite clearly bigger, stronger, faster, deeper at Georgia than at Florida State. So that is, I mean, in some ways, maybe it was good for Mike to see it as if he didn't know it. I don't want to assume that he didn't. But when you see it up close and personal and you realize, okay, look, this game is not a proper representation of who FSU is. It's not even a good judge of what would happen if these two teams played healthy. Certainly it's not that. But does the team that is Georgia, who is without question a top 4 team in this country and would be favored over any of the teams that are in the playoff, are we, how much closer are we to meeting that standard? And the answer is you still got a ways to go. I think that is a fair thing to say, that your second and third string's not close to their second and third string.
Yeah, you got to see what the gap was. I mean, and there's a significant gap there. We had built, I believe, a championship level football team. I mean, now if they were going to finish the job when they got there with Jordan, higher probability. Without Jordan, maybe they could have. But I think this year, Mike Norvell, in concert with the Battle's End, who did yeoman's work, built a championship-level football team. Now, what does it take to be an elite football team by this year's standards? Because there's a lot of pretty good out there. There wasn't anybody that was totally dominant. So they're an elite football team for 1 year. Can they be an elite football program? That's what we're waiting on. They're elite in the portal. They're elite in the collective game. They're above average to pretty good in the recruiting ranks. This was a much better.
Got to get a lot better there, though.
If you want to be an elite football program, I mean, I'm not saying that it's debatable that they're elite at recruiting. No, it's not. It's not debatable because they aren't. So that's the gap that's left. They're not bad at it. They're not great at it. They're good at it, but not much more than good. So that's the gap that remains, and you get to see that, unfortunately, when Georgia, and I'm not even talking about the first half, the third quarter and the fourth quarter of that game, where you say, all right, well, it is indisputable that they've got more reserves for this fight than we do. And it's just plain and simple to see.
Yeah, and that's not a knock. That's not a knock on Florida State. I think Florida State's ahead of schedule, but let's remember the Noles have only really had 2 very good seasons recently. They had a terrible season the year before those 2, and even worse before that. It was a COVID year. It was a weird year, but you get what I'm saying. And then prior to that, it was all terrible.
Yeah,
you're going to go back to 2014. So, I mean, it stands to reason.
Yeah, it's not lamenting what we're not. I'm so proud of how quickly they got to where they were. Let's be honest here. Can they be multiple things, man? Can they be better in the recruiting arena? Absolutely. Is it almost unfathomable? It certainly is before the portal era that they could go from 5-7 to where they were, and potentially a national champion, and potentially in that final game, even with their backup quarterback. Like, yeah, man, that's an incredible accomplishment. I just wish that it felt that way. It doesn't feel that way, and that's what sucks, is because the committee took that feeling from you, but now that we're on the other side of it, you got to process and say, all right, how did we get there? We're close, yeah. But how do we get there?
Yeah, and I hinted at this during the course of the year. I knew it wasn't the time to beat that drum because the starting 22 was good enough to go 13-0, did go 13-0, did win the ACC, and should have made the playoff. That's true. It's also true to say that you're not quite where you need to be in terms of the quality of the depth and what a championship level, a national championship level depth chart looks like. You're not there yet. And that's to be expected. It's not a shot. It's just another reminder. And I do think there are specific areas. I think everybody knows who listens to this show that I think a certain guy is not pulling his weight on the defensive side of the ball. I've said his name repeatedly. I've talked about this before, and I began this conversation the first time around the year before that when I was telling you we needed a new secondary coach, and I was right about that, and I'm right about this, and I think they'll make those changes in due time, and we may need to make more. These are the hard truths and the hard conversations that have to happen, and people don't like to have those conversations when you're 13-0, and I don't like to have the conversation when you're 13-0. It is just something to note. And it's a reason to be excited. I mean, to me, that's a reason not to be angry, but to be excited. I don't say it like, oh, well, see. No, well, of course not. They were 5-7 2 years ago. It's stunning that they just went 13-0 and that they manhandled LSU and that they beat Florida in Gainesville with their backup quarterback and that they've done these things. And they beat Clemson at Clemson, and they were the only team in the country to do that. They did these things, right? This is another step along the way. But what happens, and I just want to harken back to this, is what happens when you have success is that you're not a victim of it. More is expected of you because you've earned those expectations, and now you're held to a higher standard. Great. You're not held to much of a standard when you're 5-7. You're not held to a very high account when you win 3 games. Win 13 of them, you start asking about, okay, what is it going to take to be the 1 or 2, maybe 3 teams in the country that you're not in terms of depth. Now, on any given Saturday, and we know this, that 22, the 11 on defense and the 11 on offense, could have beat any of those teams. We know that. And God forbid a healthy Jordan Travis was in there, they probably would have beaten those teams. But that's a different conversation. We're having a nuanced discussion.
Yeah, agreed. That's why, for me, this year was playoffs or bust. I didn't know that the outcome could be bust by committee borderline corruption and cronyism, but that's so it's a successful season. We had that debate before. Is it successful if they win the ACC championship but don't make the play? Yeah, 13-0 is a successful season. Yeah. It's just that, 13 people in a room didn't agree that it was a successful season, which is just kind of nuts to me. But you're right. It's a nuanced discussion. there is room for growth. But the funny thing about Mike Norvell's tenure here is it didn't really get started until after COVID, at least for me, until he could go and form personal relationships with coaching staffs throughout the Southeast, have kids visit campus, shake their hands, come meet them in the parking lot, have that personal connection. The clock really doesn't start. And so in a sense, if you look at his tenure and his record at Florida State, some might say it took him a medium amount of time to flip the program. I think he did it overnight, because the moment that the lights were able to come on and people were able to visit him and his staff in turn,
correct,
they flipped this thing so quickly. And what they've built are several critical pipelines to set them up for long-term success. Number one, he's a badass recruiter. The coaches in the state trust him. That's number two. Number three, the collective game is really, really strong. Their portal ability is really, really strong. There's just this one other thing. That is more than adequate, but not elite. And so if you want to beat Georgia, then you've got to get elite in that one final place. Now, this isn't a bad start, this recent recruiting class, but it's got to be better than that.
Well, it does. And again, I will say we can just call it for what it is when you watch these things. There are certain guys that have succeeded on this staff and others that have not when it comes to recruiting. You got to demand more of those individuals. You're going to get to a place, Tom, we know this, where you go to a 12-team playoff. Each round's going to feature a game against a really good team. You're going to have quality depth. You're going to have to continue to be able to withstand the wears and tears that is big-time college football. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
For local news now.
A 28-year-old Quincy man identified as Bakari Tyreen Price is behind bars in connection to a fatal shooting on New Year's Eve. The shooting took place near 110 East Washington Street, just around the corner from the Gaston County Courthouse. It is unclear if police believe Price knew the victim or any details on the time or circumstances surrounding the shooting. Price was booked into the Gaston County Jail Sunday afternoon at about 4:30 p.m. for murder while engaged in certain felony offense. No details about the victim have been released. 2024 holds a special meaning for Florida's capital city. This year marks 200 years of history for Tallahassee and Leon County. Mayor John Daly talked to residents about what the city and county have in store to mark the occasion. The city plans to celebrate the bicentennial during the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade on January 15th. And during springtime Tallahassee, they want to take it to the next level during the bicentennial. And there's also plans for a bicentennial ball for a special ode to the city's special birthday. This is Rachel and A with your Real Talk 93.3 Local News Update, brought to you by McLemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at McLemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Rain showers likely this afternoon. Otherwise, cloudy skies expected. Daytime highs approaching 54. Northeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Rain showers likely. Lows dip down to about 38. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 58. This report is brought to you by The Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, it's 54 degrees.
What do you need tires on? Your car or truck, tractor or heavy equipment? At Nice Tire and Auto Service, we have tires for all of these needs. From air conditioning and computerized alignment to oil changes and everything else under the hood. Call Nice Tire and Auto today at 574-4100. That's 574-4100 for your scheduled maintenance. National accounts welcome at Nice Tire and Auto Service, 4792 Bluntstown Highway, just west of Capitol Circle.
So everybody knows, Eddie, that you are a spectacular cook. Of course they know that. If they go into Bumpa's, the food is always good. I mean, everything on the menu. Mm-hmm. Everything at Gordo's is delicious. I always, of course, get the bungalow chungla, as I call it.
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Is that what is the pork?
The bungalow chung, Jeff.
Okay, the bungalow chungla. It's delicious. All these things, all the items, everything you do, a master cook. But, sir, I would ask you, what is a skill that you possess that you're particularly proud of that nobody would know and that you could share with us here?
Growing hair, Jeff. Growing hair.
You're an asshole. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside Florida State athletics. That's Warchant.com. Now.
Appreciate you weighing in here. 2024 will test our resilience. Norvell is the man for the job. The players, you can tell, absolutely admire him. I watched the full cinematic recap. The speech he gave was inspiring. Let's go, Noles. 2024 is a big year. Appreciate that, Nick. You can tell the way that this is where this is going. And what I mean by where this is going is the way that a certain network is going to represent Florida State and the way that conversation has already gone so far in this offseason. I'm not surprised by it, but I do think, you have a lot of work ahead to continue to build and improve upon what you've already done. We're hitting the portal now. That will provide some answers. But the narrative surrounding this program, certainly by outsiders, is going to is probably going to be ugly. It's going to be the thing. I mean, I saw James B say it here. I talked about it right before the break, Tom, and I said I'd rather enjoy this role, maybe not for me personally, but when Florida State's been put in this position before, it has responded and responded well, but it's the wearing of the black hat. It is, Florida State is that. And I think it's a confluence of events that have led to this. The oddity of what's going on now with these bowls and the opt-outs and what that game was and the way it looked, coupled with the frustrations of the game and the transfers and, the lack of leadership at the highest levels in the sport, and this growing angst that, if think about it this way, it's so funny. When you think about the lawsuit that Florida State filed, and if you missed the interview last hour, I would encourage you to go back and find it from hour number 1. Michael Mestre joined us to talk about the litigation. But for whatever, people resented that Florida State sued the ACC. And when you read the articles nationally and you get a sense of what the pundits there are thinking about Florida State's lawsuit, usually within the criticisms of Florida State in those articles is maybe a paragraph later admission that the finances have changed radically over the last 5 years, and that those programs that are not in the Super 2 as of right now cannot sustain a level of high competition, or at least not at the highest levels, without there being some sort of financial wherewithal coming from where, right? Nobody knows. Nobody understands where you could get that. Well, we do. Florida State took the initiative. They know this is untenable. And so it's so weird to hear the hypocrisy in those articles, but they shape the tone of the conversation. So these next 12 months, 2024 is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch in college football. And I know I laugh at it because my kids don't know any better. And my wife doesn't care, but she loves Florida State. She's a Florida State graduate. So they'll just be like, why are they mad at Florida State, Dad? Why is everybody mad at Florida State? And I'm like, they're stupid. That's why they're stupid or disingenuous. Because if it was their alma mater, if it was their team, they'd be like, we got to go. We're getting left in the dust. Florida State just did what everybody knows you got to do, which is you've got to jump up and down and say, nay, this ain't happening. I'm not sitting over here getting bent over while everybody else gets rich. Not going to happen. I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to do everything I can do to make sure that I'm eating from the money trough. That's as old as the Jeff Cameron Show is the reference to the money trough. You better go get yours.
Well, that's the thing to me is I rather enjoy the black hat, the idea of I'm wearing literally one right now, but with the ACC, it's long been, we're going on about a dozen years now of me hating on this conference. It's just that we didn't have too much of an option in the beginning when I was complaining about the conference. When we first signed our grant of rights, the extension was ridiculous. We all knew that. I thought the equal shares was always a ridiculous idea. But we had leadership here in Tallahassee that said that it was for the best. It was for the best that Boston College and Wake Forest makes as much as Florida State because it's a rising tide. No, it's not. Dear God, it's a hole in our hull. It is not a rising tide. And that's what everybody had kind of figured out in the last 2 to 3 years within the administration over at Florida State. that changed their minds and it put them in a position to act. There's so many ways to go with this. But the thing I'll do is, for those of you that didn't join us before the new year, I'll say it for you after New Year's Day, which is you got a couple options here. Number one, I think isolationism is actually in this instance a pretty good idea for your own mental health as a Florida State fan, because you're going to catch it from all sides.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well just focus on, I don't know, something like warchant.com, maybe the Jeff Cameron Show 1 to 3 weekdays, and we'll tell you how it is. And it's all good, because there are fights that are going to be fought in the short term and the long term, but you're going to hear about it from regional talking heads and national talking heads in a way that's ridiculous. The second way you can do it is take notes and be an elephant and never forget who told on themselves in this moment. You already have more than a couple of handfuls of media members who are telling on themselves that they're disingenuous actors or actresses. That's fine. You can continue to do that, and then when it's time down the line, don't forget. Don't forget when they're buddying up to Florida State as a member of the SEC or the Big Ten and saying, this was always for the best. No, don't you forget about it. Those are the two paths you can take. My thinking right now is more of what we were just talking about, which is recruiting. There's a barrier in terms of messaging to kids right now. And if we need better recruiters last year, we really need them now, because they're going to have to be able to message and create bonds more effectively to overcome the negative recruiting that Florida State's about to find itself in the middle of for being in a so-called Power 5 conference per the playoff selection committee.
Yeah, I do know this. It's funny. It's all at once a sense of, you're in dire straits and you're holding on. And the only way you can do that is to kind of, it's the ultimate revenge, right? Lead a great life, go on and do your thing, go win games, just keep winning games. And that will solve the problem. And in a weird way, that is true. What feels to be overwhelming and, the kind of weight that we carry around after getting snubbed and then that game playing out and the narrative and the commentary and all that, how quickly it goes away, how quickly it dissipates. I mean, the next thing you know, you're in March and nobody's talking like that. Nobody is having that conversation. You're on the back burner. And the next time it comes up is when you go to the ACC kickoff, which will be delightful this year, Tom. Making our way to the ACC kickoff is going to be a great joy for yours truly. I cannot wait to meet you there, sir, and to smile ear to ear as we walk through those doors in Charlotte.
I think the goal is to be barred from coming, right? Isn't that the goal between now and then, is to speak enough truth? You don't have to be incendiary, although the truth can be incendiary to many parties there at the ACC headquarters. But to say, no, you're not welcome, Jeff. You're not like our friends at the CW, like Dennis Miller.
Dennis, are you here?
Dennis
didn't make it again this year.
Dennis will tell you he's standing right here.
Dennis.
But if you are,
Dennis, now this is getting embarrassing.
I'm starting to think that Dennis doesn't value our relationship. If you are allowed, I think you should be front and center for the commissioners forum. First row on the aisle, right in front of that podium, and just very alert. Just there you go, taking notes. Maybe wearing Florida State gear. Maybe you would break protocol for the event and wear that fine hoodie that you have on right now.
Yeah, I never do that when we go to Charlotte. I don't wear FSU gear. I there to have the conversation and to be fair to all the others that sit down across from me and try to have a conversation where they're not worried about where I'm taking it, that kind of a thing. But maybe for that press conference, I could wear this with a Florida State hat. Jim, your thoughts on Florida State as we enter the year? I want to get your thoughts on the ACC champions. Jim, stop looking for Dennis. He's not here. My eyes are right here, Jim. Answer my question regarding the ACC champion, the undefeated Florida State Seminoles, and your thoughts on this season and what's at foot here for the ACC.
Most people in those forums sit down after they ask the question. You could just remain standing in that spot. Make it supremely awkward.
Jim, I'm curious. It seems that the ACC may have anticipated the lawsuit that Florida State filed against them and instead levied their own action in court 2 days before the lawsuit was announced. Now, why would that be if the grant of rights is ironclad? Jim. Like that would be, I'd get ushered out.
Jim, have you ever met Dennis Miller from the CW? Yes or no?
Are you just,
no.
yeah, you've never met Dennis. Dennis
No.
doesn't know you.
No, I faxed him, and he signed a piece of paper.
That would be the first truthful answer. Like, yeah, that's exactly. Don't you know the conference that I lead? This is the kind of.
And he didn't know you were backing him into a corner so you can send contracts away from the league office to be reviewed and signed. Oh, that's great. Thank you, Jim.
Man, I am excited, and I can't wait for it. I mean, tomorrow's Redemption Thursday. We'll get into wagers. We'll have a good time with it, but I am so excited for the announcements, one after the other, of what we're going to do in the portal. Now, I'm not telling you it's 10 to 15 or anything like that, but I think there's going to be 4 really significant, how about them apples?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, I do.
That's
just a projection, Tom.
Okay.
Listen, the track record says that's exactly what it's going to be, that they're going to be 4 or 5 guys where you're going to go, hell yes.
I took note of the number, that there was a specific number that you floated out there. Okay.
Of the elite. I don't know, what you cobble together after that. But of the elite, they're going to be, I think, 4 or 5 where you're like, okay, run it back another 13-0, boys. It's Jeff Cameron Show. We'll come back, wrap it up momentarily.
Your heating and air conditioning system doesn't check with you before it takes a break. That's why we're always ready to help. Any day, anytime, anywhere. And with our annual service agreement, there are no overtime charges. Ever. At Verno Heating and Air, we will always be there for you.
Verno Heating and Air Conditioning.
License CAC 1816186.
There's nothing like relaxing in a hot tub after a long day. But if you don't have one, you're truly missing out. Hot tubs and spas have tremendous health benefits, besides just helping you relax. Like improving your sleep, they help with pain relief. They help to better your cardiovascular health, and so much more. And this season is the perfect season to finally buy what you've been wishing for. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patio, and Spas has the hot tubs you need for the price you want. Come shop our huge 12,000 square foot showroom and save today. There's over 50 hot tubs in stock right now, so you won't have to wait weeks on end for that delivery to finally come to town. If you're ready to relax, we're here to show you how. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patios, and Spas. Come visit our huge showroom at 2473 Greer Road with over 50 hot tubs to choose from. You'll be glad you did.
I'm Greg Tisch, and I want to share one of my favorite TCC alumni stories. It's been almost 30 years since Charlie Ward led the 1993 FSU football team to its first national championship, won the Heisman, and became the first Heisman winner to play in the NBA. But did you know, like thousands of students before and since, he started his college career at TCC? We are proud to call Charlie Ward one of our own. Today, he serves on the TCC District Board of Trustees, so you might even get to see him around campus.
TCC thanks our community for 58 years of support. We look forward to moving into the future together.
Now go call Seminole Glass. Now get on the road and get it done fast.
Hey Tallahassee, Sarah here. This El Nino heat is brutal. When it's hot, glass is soft and more prone to cracks. No need to call your insurance. Go to SeminoleAutoglass.com. Upload your policy card and request an appointment.
Hey, Sarah, what note does a B make when it hits your windshield? A B flat.
Jimmy. Better call Seminole.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show is a production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Check out Warchant.com today for the latest news inside
And we were talking about, having more money gives you an edge in waiting out your opponent. And the ACC certainly would have the opportunity to engage in that when facing FSU about this, whether or not we end up with a, settlement or not. But what I will ask him the next time we talk to him, and I have thought about this aspect of it, a lot of people do believe, a lot of attorneys smarter than me have told me that they think eventually this will get settled. But what I always wonder about with something like that is, in this case, Tom, if the ACC settles, are they not signing their death warrant? I mean, I get that confidentiality is going to be a part of any agreement. But look at the world we live in right now. I mean, come on. I mean, all of these things get leaked.
I think what it does is it doesn't necessarily die on the vine right then and there. It does as a power conference, sure, but it already is dead as a power conference because the playoff committee said they're not one. So, you got that going for you. I think what it does is it becomes a competitor of the Big 12 or the American or something along those lines at that point, because whoever wants to play at the highest level will play at the highest level. And whoever wants a berth, one of those auto berths to a group of 5 school, well, the ACC will be a part of that collective now and not the Power 2 or the Power 3, however it shakes out. But I think what they're doing is they're positioning themselves to be a coast-to-coast conference for the lower tier. I think that's what the most recent move was. I think if and when Florida State leaves, Clemson goes with them and whoever else follows, like maybe North Carolina, who out of one side of their mouth says Florida State is terrible for doing what they're doing, and out of the other side, they can't wait. They're champing to go to the Big Ten or the SEC. Maybe they go pick up Oregon State. Maybe they go pick up Washington State, and they try to make this thing happen across different time zones. But they will effectively, at that point of a settlement, be signing their death warrant as a power conference. But, I mean, we can already say it. We aren't one anymore. That's why we didn't make the damn playoff ourselves as 13-0.
No, they made it resoundingly clear. I'm curious, the second you agree to terms with Florida State and it allows them to leave, the others that want to leave are going to do so. And that's the only thing that I'm concerned about that would maybe cause them to say, screw it. This is the very existence. This is the life of the conference at stake. We're going to wait it out. Mm-hmm. Now, you do risk, obviously, if they don't settle, getting nothing. There is the risk factor involved here that the ACC could receive nothing.
What's the goal? I mean, Jim Phillips would tell you, well, it's a, are we here to make money or are we here to succeed? But in truth, if you could get him, pull him aside and get him to do something he hardly ever does, which is speak. And then also, secondly, speak the truth. What's their goal here? I mean, he has to know. I don't think those photos.
I'm not so sure.
That's fair. But those photos from Charlotte or the Orange Bowl where he has the look of a dead man walking. I mean, I think he gets it. It's not just about that he has to be on the same field with Florida State, disgusting Florida State. I think it's
also one of the great pictures that come out of all of this. I want that on a shirt. I want that. I almost made that my Twitter avatar. It's just fantastic.
Which one? The dais in Charlotte or the Alfred is looking at his watch?
Alfred looking at his watch while Phillips scorns and stares at the moon. It's just fantastic.
Okay, so slight correction to the itinerary for July. You will wear a hoodie with that photo on it. Yeah.
It's true. Whoever took that photo, bravo. It is so good. I mean, just the disdain. It's so good.
Well, and remember that Jim Phillips is not only incompetent, but he's only a disingenuous actor himself. He wanted the Big Ten commissioner's role. He would be doing the thing that he is crying about others doing if he actually got the job that he wanted to get.
Big Ten officials would tell you, no, he wouldn't, and that's why he's not the Big Ten commissioner. Hey, we can say whatever we want about Greg Sankey, but I'll reiterate over and over and over again, he knows who he works for, and he unabashedly goes about the process of ensuring what's best for the SEC, even in the face of absolute nonsense, just rhetoric, silly gibberish. He will say it proud. Just it's.
Are you Coach Amato? What are you doing?
I was literally doing what I saw Sankey doing when he came on game day. It was so funny. Twice he caught himself kind of being frumpy, and then he was like, he leaned. I'll show you the footage. It's so good. Like nobody. I was laughing so hard in Charlotte when I saw it. I'm like, look at my man. He's trying to be tall. He is trying to do everything he can. It was awesome.
So we haven't talked about that, and we don't really need to. I didn't tune into that game, the Rose Bowl. Jamie had it on. This is true. It's not one of those things like, well, I actually watched it, but 3.5 minutes to go is the point at which I was like, let's see what happens at the end. Because I had seen on social media Milroe's stat line as the game went along, and I'm thinking,
wasn't good, buddy.
I mean, neither of those quarterbacks are good. Everybody, McCarthy's the best that Michigan's ever had. Good Lord, people. What are we talking about? It's funny to me that quarterback play. I know it's an obvious take, but it's hilarious to me that it's all about quarterback play. That's what's holding us back. Do you know if Milroe could complete half of an open pass that they would have smoked Georgia in Atlanta by like 24 that day?
If he could.
If he could have. That was the quiet thing about the Alabama-Georgia game, is that defense didn't show up at all. Milroe had wide open targets all day long, and he barely could hit enough to get the job done.
Yeah, it's comical. It makes me laugh to see that stat line. Of course it did, and it was nice to watch them lose with that stat line and think, well, yeah, appreciably better, I guess. Yes, I see. I don't know. I don't go and play that game. As far as Michigan, Alabama, I was happy that Michigan won the game. If happy is a proper descriptor, I'm rooting for Washington to win the whole thing. And rooting is a strong word, but I have no problems with Washington. I've always had an affinity for Washington. I like their colors. I love the campus. I've been there. I got no problem with that school. If they win it, that'd be great. But again, I watch. I'm not going to not watch the games, especially when we get down to precious few, because I love college football. I called it the Invitational on this show, and I know what it is, but I will watch as many games as possible. And so for that reason, I did watch. And I was kind of curious. It was interesting because I think Florida State's defensive line, a healthy defensive line, would have dominated both those offensive lines. Now, I say dominate. They would have dominated Michigan's offensive line less than Alabama's. But they would have had an opportunity to have to make that kid make a lot of throws. And Alabama couldn't do it.
That's the frustrating thing and it's never going to be resolved ever, because that time has passed now. But we were always looking at Florida State and Alabama. Texas gets a pass because they have to get in order to get Alabama into the field of 4. So it's almost like we don't even discuss Texas, but that defense would have, even though it's weakness against weakness, so that pass defense against a backup quarterback would have been interesting. But none of those 4 teams, like Michigan's resume, tell me about it. Tell me about Michigan's resume. Everybody's focusing on Florida State versus one-loss Alabama, but putting Florida State's resume, the best they looked against the best they played, I mean, this was a gettable year, and that's what sucks about it. It was gettable this year.
All right, my brother, be good. I'll see you tomorrow. Good job, Matthew, as always. And to all those that tuned in, we appreciate it as always. Peace.